open sign.
Are we open?
We are open. Open for business.
Open! We're open for business.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Do you notice my new sign? Open.
We are open. It's not a new sign. We've had it for a lot of years.
Old. I had to dust it off.
But you got it working.
Oh,
again.
It looks like I have a halo on.
Well, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever place you're coming from.
That's right.
I just have to say something funny. Last week on Duzie Live, I wore the wrong outfit, right? Dan was getting ready to wear white, and I wore this. Well, today, I was getting ready to wear white because Dan wanted white, and he's like, I already got ready with black. And I was like, okay, black it is. So
yeah, but if you remember, I said, I'm willing to put on white. And she's like, no, I'm black.
So this just goes to show that we need to have Duzie Live so we can understand how men and women think, especially focusing today on the ladies.
And it's been a little bit difficult because over the days of coronavirus, we don't leave the house. So we still try to dress the same, but sometimes we put on the first outfit until later on in the day, and it's like, let's put on the outfit that matches. So we're a little bit confused.
Well, welcome in. I see that people are signing in here at Duzie Live. You're saying where you're coming from. Let's see who we've got so far. We've got Jonathan Tang first in, and he's coming in from
sunny Germany.
Wow, sunny. Nice to know it's sunny.
Sunny. I don't remember the rest of the song. I knew that part. Sunny.
I don't know what the part is either. We've got David Taylor.
Checking in from England.
Hello.
All of England.
He's spread out today. David is doing hard things today. David, thank you for your new blog post. I cannot wait to read it. Roseanne's coming in from the Netherlands. Thank you for joining us again. And Megan. Love having you, Megan, from Sheffield, UK. And Matt, what? We have two Taylor brothers today.
Taylor boys in the
Get
house.
ready, world. Matt and David are both
here. I just
here.
want to say something really intelligent, like I should get a new suit because we have so many Taylors in the room. But I won't do that.
Oh, you're humming today. This is good. Rob Jameson.
Do you like my halo today?
It is halo-like. Rob is back again. Welcome in, Rob. Hoping this session will mean I completely understand everything about
women. For sure.
This is the promise. That is not the promise. We cannot guarantee that you will know everything about women, but maybe you'll help us.
But that's why we need God in our life.
Richard's coming in from Hamburg, Germany. Welcome in. Helen, yay. From Dubai, thank you. Tim and Joni, my parents.
Welcome.
They're in, and they're all the way back in Michigan.
Here, now they're in Michigan.
Oh, and Matt saying hi to Rob. Bethany Lloyd from Bahrain.
Hello.
Welcome in, and thank you. Nathan from Canada.
Canada.
I feel like I just want to have a maple leaf out right now, red and white. Canada.
It's an oak leaf.
It's not, isn't it? It's a maple.
I like to try to throw her off sometimes.
Carrie Tang, welcome in from cloudy UK. Alice, yay, Bristol. Thank you for joining us, Alice. Melanine from France. And, Bristol. Oui. Okay, so more coming in. When you come in, please just put your name and where you're coming from in the chat. So we just want to remind you that your life is a remarkable story, an adventure that only you can create.
We exist to motivate and equip you to live fully alive.
Today in this Duzie Live, we're talking about unique relationships. It's part of our series, and especially girl meets boy. Yeah.
And if you didn't watch last week, I would encourage you to go on our YouTube channel. That's Duzie Space Potter. And there's the 9 o'clock and the 2 o'clock shows are there. We've had a lot of comments from people about just how it's changed some of their thinking, and that's what this is about. This isn't about trying to say this is the way all girls are, or this is the way guys are, or put girls down, or put guys down, or anything like that. We're just talking about it because that's what we do here on Duzie Live.
We love to talk. The Duzie Live.
Some like to talk more than others. We found that out last week.
Duzie Live is the place where you get involved. So you can be involved in the chat. We love it that you guys are having this little conversation together with one another because it's a community building experience. We're going to be talking about stuff. You're going to be reacting to it. And last week, I just have to say, it was one of my favorite, both the 9 a.m. and the 2 p.m., because we were humming in the chat space. And by the look of the people who are here with us that have just let us know, we have another good week coming. So we want you to respond to what's going on, what we're presenting, what we're talking about. Laugh with us, laugh at us. We don't mind.
Now let me bring you up to speed with a story. This story is just going to prove that Susie and I, we don't have it all together. Last night, we were sitting around the table outdoors, and we were planning what we were saying today. We've been talking about it throughout the last couple weeks. We're sitting there, and Susie's just giving me the download of where she thinks it should go. And I made one comment, and that took the next 4 hours because
was it 4 or 3?
It was 4. It was 4 hours, and it was interesting that just my words sent from my thinking were so different than what she received with her thinking.
It made for an emotional response, so let's just say.
We were outside and talking, and then I thought it was done. I actually thought, this is over. We're gonna go inside, move forward. And then we went inside to the kitchen, and that's when it just continued. And I just sat there in the midst of that and went, wow, we are different. We do think differently. And again, we had to just sit down and process it out. And for me, I was ready to be done. Susie needed to make sure everything. And so afterwards, I was laughing about it because it's like, that's exactly what we're talking about. And it happens quite often that we realize that. And so we need to understand it.
We're good. Do we need to shake? So we just want to have a poll. It's poll time.
It's poll time.
Can you give us our poll time music?
It's poll time.
And the poll is, get ready there. Are you a boy or a girl? Now, this is not a gender identity moment.
We just want to girls at the moment.
The girls are in first. Whoop, whoop.
What? Come on, guys. Show up here. Oh, there we go.
So, are you a guy, a boy? Are you a girl? Or
both means there's both watching.
Like this. There is a guy and a girl here in the space.
It isn't like half is girl, half is boy. It's not. It's you got more than one gender in the room. So let us know where
we just want to see the perspective. Again, we are not trying to put anybody in a box. We are completely.
Wow, we have a lot of people in the room this morning. Welcome, everyone. Some of you didn't sign in and tell us where you were from, but that's okay.
It's up to you. Okay, here's where we're at so far. I know it's slightly different, but right now it says we have 38% of you are guys.
No, 35 on your phone.
Oh, it went up to 38 and 55 girls and 5% of both. All right, and it keeps changing. Nice. So
good.
That's great.
It's good for us to know who we're talking to. We're talking to boys and girls in both. And that clears up everything.
Okay, maple syrup is one of the best things ever invented.
She has maple syrup every single morning.
I try because I'm a waffle girl. I love to make my waffles. Yes. I know. We learned that the boys think like waffles in compartment.
Yep.
And I was having waffles and thinking about the boys being waffly.
And I won't even say anything about waffling on.
You already did.
Oops.
You already did. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay. So here we are. We've got a few more girls, but we've got a good representation of guys in the space as well.
Now we invite you guys as we go along. You can ask any questions. Why do you think that way? How does that work?
Comments.
Make all those comments. And
emotional outbursts.
We want you to speak in the process as well. If you agree with what's going on, put it in there. I agree. If you totally disagree, say, I totally disagree. And that's okay. We're not trying to put anybody in a box. It's more like a helium balloon and let you go.
Oh, a helium balloon.
Ooh.
Oh, I like that. Well, do we need to see the video?
No, we'll skip the video.
We'll skip the video. Okay. Hopefully on the
video
registration.
You've probably seen a few times.
On the registration page, you saw the video.
But if you didn't go and watch What's Up, Doc, that's where some of this is taken from. I went and watched some of it. You can just put in What's Up, Doc car chase, and it'll show you a little bit of where it was really filmed years ago.
Yeah. Oops. Okay. So it looks like our presentation is slightly too far back. So I'm going to I'm just going to go to previous about 20 times while you tell us. Well, you tell us a story, Dan.
A story.
Yes, story time by Dan Potter.
A story. Okay.
You got one?
Yes.
Okay, go.
I'll tell you a story about this morning. This is the way guys think. So this is a little bit from last week.
Okay.
I was resetting this up this morning so I could get my open sign in there. And the open sign we've had for years, but I wanted it to be part of Duzie Live.
Right?
And on. And then I saw Mickey. And Mickey used to sit in my office. I used to actually answer the phone with Mickey. And Mickey
the phone with the line that hooked to the cord, that one.
It's called a house phone.
Yeah.
Mickey has a little button on it that if you push it, it goes, hi there, I'm Mickey. And it's got like 4 different things it says. So I thought it'd be really cool this morning to reach up here and push the button and have Mickey welcome us to Duzie Live. And it didn't work. So I unscrewed it. It went into like a 25-minute taking out batteries,
Jan is
scrubbing.
very time-oriented today.
And on. And Mickey still remains silent. So it just proves Mickey this morning is probably being more of the guy.
Maybe he used up his 7,000 words already.
His batteries are dead.
I don't know. Okay, there's a story. We appreciate that. Here we go. Girl Meets Boy Part 2 of 2, because last week was Boy Meets Girl, and now it's Girl Meets Boy. These are tongue twisters.
If you look at it from the back, it still says Boy Meets Girl, but that's a dyslexia moment.
Yeah, so that's all right. We'll just take it. And here we are. Don't forget, we are unique individuals with unique experiences. So this is John Gray. If you haven't read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and you want to know more differences, recommend you go there. Another great place to go is Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she has a lot of YouTubes about guys and girls.
And the brains of each.
Yeah, and that's also very fascinating.
But just if it confused you, men are actually not from Mars and women are not from Venus. We're all from God.
Earth.
Please don't start any sign picketing or anything. This is not a doctrinal statement. This is a book.
Okay, there we go.
I've been living in the political world this week, and it's
Yeah.
like everything someone says, someone else blows out of proportion. So I'm being very careful
Politically
with my
correct.
words this morning.
Just want to encourage you to be free to be who you are. This was a theme that we had for MTO, for Teen Street, for a number of years. Our son Josiah made this graphic, and I absolutely love it. So when it was time to make a disclaimer, I thought this is a picture we have to have because I love it. We're not caging anybody in. That is not the goal of us in this Duzie Live Girl Meets Boy, but we're trying to open it up and let us hang out together. Some of us like to hang out up in a risky space like the top, or parachuting, or jumping off, or ballooning down. Some of us like to be a little bit more safely inside, but let the door be open. So I don't know, maybe you can put in the chat, where do you find yourself in this particular picture when you're thinking about guy meets girl?
The idea is simply this, though. We want you today, as we go through, to be free to be you.
Be exactly who you are, but we're going to have some starting points that are mainly presented so that we can have good discussions about it. So when the discussions are happening, we're extremely happy. All right, so it looks like Helen said, it's funny how the majority is women, as if we are seeking to understand our complicated selves. True. It helps
Helen,
me.
you're a wise woman.
And Jonathan says, I think the guys have just accepted defeat. I don't know. And Megan says, speaking to what Helen said, do you think the girls are more interested in discovering more and guys are more just wanting to be? Good point, Megan. We're gonna
that would be a place on the comments for you guys to answer that. What do you think?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a lot more, but good starting question. Megan, you have good ones. Thank you for bringing it. Matt says, Helen, good luck. I'm not sure who said this quote, but it's quite good. To understand the mind of a man, it takes a man. To understand the mind of a woman, it takes God. That's a good one, Matt. Is it true?
Well, I heard this
Do you
video.
think it's true?
I don't know. I don't know if I would comment on that. But I heard this video one time that talked about, as creation was made, they became more and more complex. And one of the last things God created was woman. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I actually, as a husband of Susie, I don't ever want to figure out the mysteries of the way she thinks.
Thank you.
To me, I find it so attractive that every day I have to go, who is this woman I'm living with? That's not a bad thing. That's a very, very good thing. And so I think it's part of the process where Susie looks at me and goes, I married a simpleton. Yes, you did. That's me, you know?
Oh, no, you're not at all simple. Really? You're trying to make yourself a simple? You are beautifully complex.
It's damn simple.
Nope, you are not simple. You're wonderful, though. Rob says webinars might be less appealing to guys, need some more physical element. Think about that with us. We can
bring our weights next time.
We can add that in, no problem. All right, so here's a little bit of information. We just want to throw this research out on men versus women.
And then we're going to talk about it.
Okay, so you can already start putting in the chats if you think this is you or not you or whatever.
So men, on average, can more easily juggle items in working memory. So I like to juggle, but in our working memory, we can juggle more than one item. Men have superior
visuospatial.
Yeah, but we didn't invent that word for sure. That's object in space. We have those skills. What kind of skills are
so that means that you are better at visualizing what happens when a complicated 2 or 3 dimensional shape is rotated in space. So you're good at seeing it in 3D, 2 or 3D, and also correctly determining angles from the horizontal. So this is like a skill that men have.
That's why I like to look at Susie so much. Right there, I'm a guy in visual angles
and horizontal from the whatever, and at tracking moving objects and aiming projectiles. Now, isn't this an important one? Moving objects and aiming projectiles. So I don't know. Maybe this is like air and space dynamics. Interesting.
We just made the guy more complex with that slide.
Oh, for sure. And women excel in verbal ability, except for verbal analogies. So guys are better at the verbal analogies, like putting 2 things together, and this is like this. And Dan, you're excellent at that. So I can just say whoop whoop for that.
Thank you.
Women are also good at reading comprehension and writing ability. Consistently, they exceed that of men on average, reading and writing. They outperform men in tests of fine motor. So real detail, movements. Women are a little bit better in that coordination and perceptual speed.
Women are better in finding motors?
Fine motors.
Oh, fine motors.
Perceptual speed. They can perceive and they can get there and make it happen, I guess. They're also more adept at retrieving info from long-term memory. So if it's been a long time ago, they can get there better.
So true in our situation.
They can retain stronger, more vivid memories of emotionally events than men do. Remember, we talked about emotionally events, and anything that was highly emotional, I can retrain. Like last night's discussion on just making sure that I don't go on and on and on like I'm doing right now.
I don't remember the discussion other than the emotions that came from it. So Susan and I went through this list yesterday, and it was like, wow, these are some heavy things. These are big things. I can't even say most of the words. So let's talk about them a bit.
Okay, so just here's the blurb. And we're not categorizing guys or girls, so put in the chat. What are you good at? If you're good at any of these, then put it right in the chat. Memory, working, long-term, or emotional events. So we said guys were better at this, that, or the other. Visuospatial skills or objects in space. You're able to see that. Verbal ability, reading comprehension, writing ability, or coordination. What are the things that you are good at?
While you're writing it, there's a few things coming in the comment. We'll go to the comments, and then we'll come to your comments on these comments.
Okay,
and we'll make comments on your comments from the comments.
All right, David had a good one, and Megan is doing a call out. Can you respond to David? And does freedom look the same for men and women? This is a great question. What do you think? Megan says, I wonder if these days people want things to be easy and self-explanatory, and actually marriage and relationships take work. Amen, sister. And so it's worth it, though. And so if you're willing to put the work in, then you're not going to try hard at relationships. And then the Christian world, there's more pressure on women to be married than men. This is true, I think. Sure. Dan is not a simpleton. Okay. Thank you, Megan. I agree. What do you mean by freedom, David? Duzie wanted people to feel free. Yeah, we don't want to box you. We want to open it up so you can be who God made you to be. That's what it is.
Let me just
free to be you.
Let me stop here for a moment. David, my mind is clicking away on, do men and women experience freedom differently? I think when it comes to freedom, I'm not sure if it is a guy-girl thing. I think everyone experiences freedom differently. I think I experience freedom different than you.
Yeah.
I long for freedom in a different way than you would long for freedom. So I am not sure. This would be an incredible deep dive to look at freedom according to genders. But I just find, with people I'm close to, other guys, that their perception of freedom is very different. On the ship, as you know, people of different cultures, freedom meant something totally different. For some people, freedom is this right. For others, it is this incredible privilege. So I'm not sure it would take more than probably this hour to answer that question, but you just triggered something.
Yeah, let's go there.
Mind, so.
I wrote that down. Let's go there. That's a great question. Alice, thank you. You have expressed completely how I feel as well. I wonder if I'm indeed a woman, because I have some of the man characteristics. And this is, again, where we want you to be free to be who you are.
And also the thing we have to think about is how much of those man-woman characteristics are part of our society and what our culture says, and how many are actually what God has created you to be. And we in no way want to get to that point where we are following culture more than what God created us to be. Because as we travel around the world, the woman's role changes everywhere. And so I think sometimes in America, there's like, this woman has to be like this. And it's like, that's not truth. And I think because we're all created in the image of God, I think there is a varying degree. But what we're doing today is we're just looking at what are some of the things that might be typical for a woman or for a man. And that doesn't mean, there are some things as we were researching, it was like, wow, in that way, I'm much more of a woman. Great, that's the way God made me. And I'm going to pursue in that because that's who I am.
Okay, so Rob's putting it out there. Rob has the gross generalization. He says, freedom as independence for guys, a freeing independence for girls. What do you think of that one?
Nice.
I like that, Rob. That's nicely generalized. And then
interdependence, dependence is nice.
Yeah. So Megan,
take back everything I said. Just listen to what Rob's saying.
Glad you're here, Rob. Put it out there. So David says, Megan, you mentioned the desire for us to have things easy. Do you think that speaks to a need to do hard things? Now, this is a topic that David has just tackled in his newly released blog. And David, if you don't mind, just put right there in the chat where people can get your blog. It's great nuggets from David. I perused it. I can't wait to really read it.
I think they get it in between the ears.
between the ears, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. David.com. Yeah. So here's some responses to what are you good at. Helen says reading comprehension, coordination, memory. Nice. And I know, Helen, you have read bucket loads of books. Go girl. Alice says memory and verbal. Bethany says memory, reading comprehension, coordination. Roseanne says memory, verbal ability. Carrie says memory and writing ability, definitely not coordination. That's awesome. Matt says, he's back to a question about pressure in the Christian world. Let me see. Where do you think the extra pressure for women in the Christian world to be married comes from? Ooh, do you know where that is coming from? You're good at things like that. All right, and Stephen, welcome in, Stephen. I didn't see you earlier. Memory, reading comprehension, and coordination. Nathan says reading comprehension and writing. Wow. And Matt, Matt, love that. Looking down that list, I feel like I'm quite good at all of them. Let's hear it for Matt Taylor.
Good for you.
Awesome. Go team.
Was it Matt or David who asked the question?
David.
Jump back to that question.
Which question is it? Because he asked a couple of them.
About
the married question or the freedom question?
The married question. I had such a great train of thought going until I was clapped in the face.
Oh, excuse me.
And then I lost my train. Oh, I remember. Oh, getting old. Maybe I should close and open again. I believe if you go back in history, there was a lot of male chauvinist thoughts coming from the church. That there's documentation where there were some things even added into some of the teachings of the church to diminish the things that we're saying are wonderful, but women to actually diminish that, to grow the man in the presence of the man. Because one of the values that seemed to be esteemed to a woman was you are a greater woman when you have children.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. Some people may still believe that. I think children are a blessing from the Lord, but you're still blessed if you don't have that. And there's a lot of people today that live that they cannot have children. And they have this guilt because of, I'm not doing my godly duty to fill the earth. So I think there's some of those things that are left over as well. So you have to get married if you're going to have children. So quick, get married. This was huge when we lived in Poland. If you were 21 years old and you weren't married, the older women...
They'd take your hand and they'd go, so sorry.
The older women would actually cry that you were not married at 21 because there was a big need not to be married. I don't think it had very much to be married. It had more to do with and have children.
Yeah, that's
right. And I think today we actually value not just the birth that a woman can give, but we value her brain, we value her impact in society. We value so much.
Speak it, Dan.
In the movement that's going on today with women actually fulfilling the things that God has called them to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that the church is definitely changing. Yeah. There are more and more women that we know that are not having children because of a great passion on their life. And so some of these things I think are changing, but I think there's a lot of leftovers, historical leftovers from when the church seemed to want only to put people in categories. And I think that is really, it's a broken system that's changing.
Yep. And I love what you said about allowing us to be free to be, about people using the gifts and the abilities that they have and offer it out there to the world. That's what the Fully Alive Revolution is all about. Helping people know who they are, their gifts, their abilities, their rhythms, their values, the community that they're putting together, and living out the passions that God has really wired them to have. And we definitely don't want to put you in a box. We want to free you. Megan had one more comment here just about the marriage thing. Maybe it's something about commitment and sticking with something that's a bigger deal. For so many in this new generation, and I've heard that over and over again, how can I know that I am going to be committed for life to this person that I'm choosing? And it is exactly that. It is a choice. I'm glad I made the choice to marry you.
It's good.
34 plus years ago. Yeah. Oh, Megan talks about Proverbs 31. Hold that thought. We're going to get there because I'm with you on that, sister. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, David, for your website. Let's see. Alice says, women may put pressure on themselves to be married, but I would question whether the external pressure is different between male and female. Definitely, depending on your culture, Alice. There's so many differences there. Ing, welcome in. And I'm more to memory and coordination. Jonathan says, I reckon living in freedom and fully alive are really similar and has to do with our life statements. Passionality. That's right. Yep. Thank you, Jonathan. Alice says, that said, until Rob and I met last year, I had more pressure from other people to be married than I actually felt myself. Other people seem to have more of a problem with my singleness than I did. Sure. Thank you for saying that, Alice. That is so true. We're going to carry on just a little bit. Here is a quick blurb from last week. We just want to remember some of these things that we learned. A woman needs longer time, 9 to 12. I decided it's about 20 hours for me to process the chemicals that are released when I have intense emotions.
90 minutes.
Enough said. And women process externally. They try to talk it out, and it's a together situation.
Internally, just give us some time and space. For me, and I know a lot of guys are that way. We go internal.
Yep. And then about number of words per day. Women have the average of 16 to 20,000 words per day, and it comes out like steam. I think I have more like 25,000 or more. You don't want to use your words on that one? less. And it's more
Maybe
like,
less.
and guys, their thoughts come out more like ice chunks, like really good wisdom nuggets. I love to say that one. Women are motivated when they feel cherished or loved. It's more about a belonging space that really is a motivation for us women.
We're motivated, at least I'm motivated, and a lot of guys I know are motivated when they feel needed. Give us a cause to fight for. I mean, this last week with the whole Black Lives Matters and going on, many of my guy friends, which you never hear from, suddenly are rising up. There is a cause. And I find, and now I'll cause in the same direction. I mean, I've had so many guys online just nail me for something I said. It's because they're stepping up. They feel needed. That's the time in which we live right now. And guys are showing up because there is a cause.
Yeah. So these were all from last week, and I want to encourage you in the Fully Alive Revolution Facebook chat, and I'm just going to put that that connection out there right now for you to grab in case you need that. But the Fully Alive Revolution group, we're encouraging you to go there. We're going to continue this week for further discussion. So all of these slides that you just saw as a review,
they're there.
They're up there, and we've already discussed. We have different posts for each of those. So let's keep that discussion going there as well.
I think it's only guys that are going there at the moment, though, because there's very little discussion.
I was like, wait, no, I don't think that's true. And Rob says a webinar of internal processors would be dull. Maybe that's why it's more appealing to girls. Okay, internal processors, people. And Megan says it's the Eve myth that any single woman is out to entrap a man. That was certainly the thinking in my church growing up. All right, thank you for those comments, you guys. So here's a quote again from the men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And I think this explains it a little bit, at least for me personally. This is true. I wonder how it hits you. When a woman's wave rises, so this is just generally when she's in a good space, she feels she has an abundance of love to give. But when it falls, she feels the inner emptiness and needs to be filled up with love. So being loved, and I think that speaks to this slide right here that we were just talking about the motivation of being cherished and loved and belonging. And when she is in that safe space, that good space, she has a lot of overflow. That's like the Fully Alive when it's coming out and she has an abundance. But when she feels low, she needs to be filled up with love. And I think that's very true for me. My love languages, for those of you who know love languages, I have all of them, but especially words of affirmation.
That's why I bought her this mug.
Well, hello, beautiful.
She even smiles in the morning before she drinks it because it's like, oh, those words are so wonderful.
Thank you, Dan, for making me coffee in my mug. Yeah, so the words of affirmation, quality time, and touch, those are really high and important for me. Of course, all of them are important for us in different ways, depending on which love language we have higher or lower of. But as we're getting to know one another, guy, girl, and also in our community groups, understand love languages because we get filled up in those ways. That makes a difference. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Ooh, look at that.
All right. Now, last week, Dan got
to
tell his part of the story. So here we are. This is over 34 years ago. I think this was about 35 years ago before we were married. And Dan told his story of us meeting. But my story did not really, my aha moment in the relationship didn't happen until much later. So I want to jump to that part of the story, if you don't mind, and tell that. So
jump away.
So Dan and I met at Brown City Camp on August 18th, my birthday. I invited him to my birthday party, and there was a whole group of people there. And Dan was there, and he was like, "This is the woman I'm gonna marry." Of course, I didn't know that,
and I didn't tell her that.
And I'm glad I didn't know that. But as the story proceeded, Dan began pursuing me, which I am so grateful for, because he was helping me understand how important and special I was to him, and he pursued me. So we had an exchange back in the day. It was phone calls rarely. I had a good job, so I could make the phone calls to him.
You could do something called reverse charges. It was a nasty thing, but you could actually call someone, and the person you called had to pay for it. It was great for a college kid.
Yeah, we were both in college at that time, and I had a job, and so it worked for us. We also wrote lots of letters. Well, we didn't see each other basically from August until the next time was Christmas time. And Dan came up to visit our family at Christmas time. And it was really interesting because that day that he came to visit, my brother John had an accident where he was running around the house and he ran into a tree branch and he had to be whisked away to the hospital. Well, Dan just happened to be there. And so we all jumped into Dan's car and went off. Well, no, somebody else took us to the hospital, but Dan came with us and we went to visit my brother. So we were in a family dynamic, and Dan hung out with my entire family. And that impressed me so much because there's 8 kids in my family.
Just back to a bit of a memory thing. I did not go in to see John, the brother. I babysit the 2 little boys.
That's 2 youngest brothers.
So I did not hang out with the family or with Susie. I babysat Ben and David. That's what I did.
And I was so impressed that he would be willing to come to visit me and take on my family. Oh, good points for that.
You don't date a person, you date a family.
Yeah, so that was kind of our involvement at that season because it was completely around the hospital. But then later, I think we were trying to decide when the time was, and we were looking for
February.
We think it was February time. This was a time when there was a phone call that was made. And this is the historical aha moment for me, actually, in the process of our relationship. So do you want to tell your part of the story of the phone call? Because it started there.
I have a friend of mine, Dan Sonnentag, and he was in the dorm with me. And I would always talk about the Susie. And all the guys were like, this girl doesn't exist. I mean, it's a figment of your imagination. It was like, she does. They said, call her. I said, I don't have to call her. And they were like, so much peer pressure. So I said, okay, I'll call her. So a bad storm was going on. And so at this point, I was putting in quarters into the phone, and she would pick up, and I would talk a little bit, and the phone would go dead. And then I put in more. And this was over 4 hours. And my friends were in the hallway. They sat down with pillows because they wanted to hear if this Susie actually had a voice. It was just incredible. We were so bored back then, no television. So finally, I was trying just to say, Susie, I think I love you. And that's all. The 4 hours was just to say, I think I love you. And every time before I could get there, the phone went dead. So finally, the phone rang, she answered, and I said, Susie, before you even say anything, I just want you to know I think I love you. And it was silence. And I went, oh, nuts. The phone went dead. And the guys were laughing. And then Susie said,
and I was like, no, I'm still here. But honestly, I was shocked. I was like, he said the L word.
When I realized she was listening, I was shocked too.
I was like, oh. So he said, I think I love you. I was like, no, I'm still here. Well, I went away from that time, and I was like, oh, my roommate Lydia was there. And I was like, oh, Lydia, he said he loved me. What's going on? She's like,
catch the process of her brain.
You love him. I was, do I? I don't know. And she said, oh, yeah, you do. How do I know I do? She was like, oh, you light up when he calls or when he sends a message or you get him a letter from him or this or that. I was like, ah. So I wrote a 6-page letter to him in my very boring class the next day. And it was like, you said you loved me, but it chokes me up to think about it. You said you love me, but what is love? I know I love my parents, my mom. I know I love my friends. I don't know what love is, but I definitely feel something different for you than for all of these other people. And I just went on and on and on. And I was like, let's have this conversation. Let's keep talking about it.
So recently I found that letter, and I was just cracking up as we went through, because I was in biology class when I was reading this letter, and I read the whole thing, and I realized one thing. She did not say she didn't love me, so she must love me. That's the way the guy's mind worked. I was like, oh, look, she loves me because she didn't say she didn't. Where Susie took 6 pages to process this whole thing. It was great.
Yeah, Dan was saying we just a couple months ago, we found the letter. We went outside in our garden, and we sat there and held hands, read the whole letter, and relived that experience and had tears running down. It was very, very touching. But yeah, this is my point. But that was for me like, oh, this is serious, because he said the L word. And I really think I don't want to live my life without him. I like what's going on with him. But I was so grateful that he took the time to pursue me and to take me at my pace and process it all out and figure it all out. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's a good story. So let's look at men a little bit when it comes to emotions. I think as men, many times our emotions are inside, and we take our emotions often underground. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's simply who we are, or again, if it's part of culture, but I need space to deal with it. And I don't know if that's always been in all cultures. I would love to have Stephen maybe comment, from the Asian point of view, but I think for me as a guy, and a lot of the guys I know, we don't just immediately speak out our emotions. We take them inside, underground, we process them, which is different than the girls.
Yeah, and the girls, and of course, this is not everybody, so be free to be who you are. We take our emotions out into the light, especially with safe people. It helps me process by letting me talk about it. This is this belonging, this nurturing, this community thing that really helps me to process. So how about you? Do you like to have your emotions more underground, or have more time and space to deal with it? Or do you like to put it out in the light? It's kind of similar to what we talked about before as well. And meanwhile, Megan has a question for the guys. In light of the Me Too movement, do you guys feel like they can't pursue or start relationships, as there are a lot in the news about that? So should guys only start the relationship? Should girls only start the relationship?
Also, the whole issue of guys are fearful of starting relationships now more, perhaps because of some of the accusations that girls have brought against
the sexual ones. Yeah.
So I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk about. I imagine it has a huge effect on people.
If I understand right, Megan, the Me Too movement is the one where girls have been sexually abused, and they're coming out later saying, me too. It happened to me as well.
And the interesting thing is, in the midst of it, just to speak into this, there is a large number of guys who have been sexually abused, but there is a huge pressure on them not to say it happened to them. I've talked to many of them. So it's a very, very confusing time, I think, for guys, and how to actually step up and be a guy, and what does that actually mean, knowing who they are, not understanding totally how the girl is thinking, boy meet girl, girl meet boy. A lot of confusion there for sure.
Yeah. So let us know about that. Emotions. Where are you with emotions?
Internal, external.
You let it out, or you keep it in. Meanwhile, one more quote from John Gray. Men need to remember that women talk about problems to get close and not necessarily to get solutions. When I am verbally processing things out, I just feel so close to Dan. And Dan often asks me this question.
Well, once she's going, and oftentimes she doesn't know what she's thinking when she's saying it, which is great.
I'm learning.
She's processing. Yeah. It's going out. At some point, I have to stop her because I am not quite sure. And I ask this. I say, Suze, is this something that I need to fix, or do I just need to listen? I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm going to listen in different ways. If this is something that she's giving to me, that when I'm done, I need to fix this, then I'm going to be listening strategically. How do we repair this? But if I am listening to her tell her story to process, and I'm not going to fix anything, then I'm just going to be listening with compassion. And so many times as a guy, oftentimes as a guy, I have to clarify, Susie, who do you want me to be in this conversation? And then once I know that, we go forward.
And many times I don't know the answer. I'm like, I want you to be you right now. That doesn't help very much either. But I find that really important when we have, Dan and I would be having these big discussions. He's been trying to fix it, listen, whatever. I'm like, could you just please give me a hug? You know, and I think that just,
I wasn't even thinking about that.
That just speaks to the get close moment. You know, I don't care if you give me a solution or not. Just be with me in the moment.
Which is so different
That's
than me.
what I need.
Because if I'm upset or angry or processing something, I want to be listened to, but it's just, don't touch me right now. Just don't touch me because I have to, you're going to distract me from
You need your space.
Where Susie's like, I'm just going to stop here so you can hug me so I can continue.
Come into my space right now.
And it's just so strange for me, but and I think that's the whole area of communication. You have to know not what you would want, but what they want and what they need. And it may not always be the same as last time.
Yeah, so ask about it. Rob, I like your description about emotions. Rob says for him, underground, bottle it up, shake a little until it explodes out. What a great picture. I can see that picture.
Like a fine Coca-Cola.
Anna says, I don't think this is always the case for me anyways. And Jonathan's responding back to Megan. Megan, I feel like guys still oftentimes want to start relationships, but they're afraid to offend the girl because of stuff like the Me Too movement. Speaking for myself, I would say I'm very hesitant when talking to the girl that I'm interested in because I do not want to come across as one of those guys that are just after a physical relationship. Jonathan, I think you've spoken so well. It's not just about the commitment. There's so many other dynamics that are going on in there as well.
And I think part of the other thing you hit on there, Jonathan, was this whole idea that people are so offended about everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never in my whole life remembered so many people so ready to be offended. It's like we have to find a cause every day to stand up or stand against. And so when a guy is stepping into a relationship or a girl is stepping in a relationship, there is this huge protection or bubble we put around us because it's like, I don't want to offend them. But I believe these are days where we need to say, well, we need to be offended a little bit because we're not all the same. We need to embrace people for who they are rather than force them to be like us and speak our thing. To me, I think some of the greatest relationships, Susie and I are very different about a lot of things. That is a magnet that draws us together.
Yeah.
And there are things that she does and it offends me. So be offended. It's okay. And it's not a sin to offend somebody. And so I think this is a big deal in relationships today.
Yep, that's right. So David says it's not about communication and understanding and a lot about what's not being said. And I think that's true. Communication and understanding and these things that we're learning here last week and this week and beyond, it's not so that we can put each other in a box. It's so that we can have those conversations and understand one another in a deeper way. And Rob says, Duzie, you should watch It's Not About the Nail if you haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Good.
Is it a movie? Is it a movie, Rob? Is it on Netflix? Where can we find it?
Point us in that direction.
And Matt says, yeah, that's a minefield for sure. We seem to be in a culture that loves to take offense.
Right.
And how can we love and include and understand more than take offense? Yeah. All right, let's head on just to another area to talk about.
Guys like doing things. These are guys I know. We like doing things because we need acceptance. So acknowledgement for being useful, for being needed, for providing. Those are very much a part of who I am for sure. I just had a talk with my dad today. And our conversation was about what he was doing in the garage, and he's so excited about what he's doing, and he's hanging up his screwdrivers and his all these things,
organizing.
And I was just so interested in what he's doing. And Susie's
and then I was like, that exact thing that your dad just said could have come out of your mouth. Like, I'm so excited that I did this and that, and I'm going to take a picture of it and show it to you because he did something useful that was needed. He provided, and it was like, wow, I
can't wait to see the picture.
That could have been you. And I think that's just like such a great illustration. Meanwhile, the girls us women are about being, what's happening. I hesitate to say this, but it's a control situation. Not necessarily having control of it, but that there is I am occupying, that my being is making a difference in that workplace, in the home, in that relationship with those people, that I have control, or I have a part to play. Control maybe is a little bit strong, but I put it there because that's what the research says. And another part of the being is, am I enough? So this being question is, who am I, and is who I am enough? Am I beautiful enough? Can I perform? Can I bring who I am to the table and occupy the space in a very important way?
It's interesting. Both Susie and I have some American Indian in us. I know I'm part Sioux Indian, and in the Sioux culture, there is this is so obvious in the culture. The men, they hunt, they gather, they fish. They're outside doing something. But who owns the teepees? The women actually own the teepees forever. Men never do that. Yeah. They control the colony is controlled by the women. They are being in that place. They are being with the children. They are being with the food as it's being made. So they're in the culture. It actually shows so clearly the women are being, and they have the control of the society, where the men are out doing, and they're getting acceptance from the women by bringing home the deer. Very, very clear in their culture. And I think sometimes we mess that up a little in our culture, but I think it's very much the same. Control is not necessarily wrong. It is a need that sometimes we are not aware of.
Yeah, for example, my sister Tammy, she lives in West Africa, and in that space where she lives, they have a lot of tribes, and men have multiple wives. So each of the wives...
That would be very confusing.
Each of the wives have their own home space, and she occupies that with her children. And the man comes, and I don't know exactly how it works, but he comes to that space. So it's another example of the women who has control of that space. What do you think? Being, doing, what's important to you? Put in the chat where you are with that. And I love this quote that came from one of the studies that explains that I feel quite well. What happens for a woman? When a man can listen to a woman's feelings without getting angry and frustrated, he gives her a wonderful gift. And it goes on this path that you see here. He makes it safe for her to express herself. Safety is so important for us. And the more she's able to express herself, the more she feels heard and understood, and the more she's able to give the man the loving trust, acceptance, appreciation, approval, and encouragement that he needs.
Happy wife, happy life.
You've heard that before. So it all starts, this quote really identifies what we've just been saying in the last couple of items. Listening to a woman and a feeling, let her express, heard, understand, then she's able to give the man what he needs in that area. So as he gives, and she is being who she is. In Ephesians 6, it talks about men, love your wives. And men and wives, respect your husband. So I feel like that's
after it says submit yourself to one another.
Yeah, so I think that kind of summarizes what we see here. Again, let's put in the chat. Tell us what you're thinking.
Along this process, sometimes when Susie and I am thinking, I'm in my head going, okay, I'm letting her express herself. I'm trying to understand her. I'm trying to give her space. And then I think she's done. And I will actually make some kind of comment or a question. And then I realize she wasn't done. And I probably just hurt her feelings by questioning that. And though it suddenly goes, boom. And I just think, oh, I should have waited a little longer. And that's not, something's wrong with Susie. There is this need within any conversation or conflict to have security. And sometimes unknowing, I have never purposely caused a conflict with Susie.
But
I have caused a lot by not waiting, not being patient. And so I think this is so true in our life. It's that listening. What are those feelings? Oftentimes, it's not even what she is saying, but she is saying a lot of things, so I will hear her feelings.
The heart.
And it's so different than the way I think, but it's beautiful. And I think we need to admire the process, the thought process of a woman, because they're different. And even you may be a woman and you're saying, well, I'm different than Susie. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. This is great.
Free to be you.
There are no boxes for women. No boxes, except shoe boxes. But anyway.
There we go. Bring the shoe element in there. Megan says, see, when Duzie talks about how Susie likes physical affection, how do you get the balance if you're just starting out in the relationship? Great question, Megan. I agree that people seem to take offense at things, but we also need to talk about boundaries and consent. How often in the church is it about no sex outside of marriage when talking about relationships, but no talking about consent? There's a great YouTube video about tea that's good on consent. Oh, give us that link, Megan. And honestly, because of your response last week, we want to go into guy-girl relationships and boundaries, I think, is our next week. Is that right?
I think so.
We'd love to hear from you in the chat if you'd like us to take that further there.
Just to comment as well on that, I think the reason why the church has played not necessarily the best part. I mean, the church has done incredible things around the world, but they're very safe with black and white statements. The church oftentimes avoids gray areas. And I think some of the things you're talking about, Megan, are gray. And so they just like, well, if you can't give a verse, don't talk about it. And it's like, but there are so many things that we need to look at, life principles. And I think those are the things that this generation wants, the authenticity of the relationship, about pursuing forward, that it's not necessarily going to have a chapter and verse because we live in a different world. And so I love this thought press, Megan, this thought process.
Yeah. So next week we want to go towards boundaries. We could add in consent in there. How do you know how fast to go? How even for a couple, what that looks like? Great questions. We want to hear more about what you want to know about. A woman, I think it's a lot of pressure in men, and men actually love it. Yeah. Okay. So different ones of us like it. Jonathan adds to the point of guys wanting to make the first move. Oftentimes in situations like this, the guy will end in the friend zone because the girl won't want to lose the guy that listens to her. Again, speaking from my life and in general. Yeah. Let's be friends. You find a really good friend. You do things together. You're in the friend zone. When you want to, or there's a desire to cross over, many relationships end.
I think also any relationship, you have to keep, it's not qualifying. What's the word? It's clarifying.
Yeah.
Clarifying, where are we at in this relationship? What's going on? And I think that is so important. Communication. Always. Don't just wait and go, someday I'm going to communicate my thoughts. If you haven't set up a pattern of communicating thoughts, then it's going to come as a shock someday.
Yep. Yeah. And David just says, it's not just the church. It seems the whole world is so binary at the moment. Thank you, David. That is so true. And there's a total reluctance to come to middle ground, feeling like if someone gives an inch, they'll take a mile. And Megan just shouting out there, she loves the gray spaces. Yep. She has a gift of going into those gray spaces and asking powerful questions and getting conversations going so that we understand those gray areas a little bit more. Yeah. Is gray with an E or an A? It depends on where in the world you are. Alice says, 100% agree with this slide. It's super vulnerable to share feelings. So it means a lot when someone can listen without reacting. Yeah. Especially when we're going to those deep, deep spaces.
Some of the best words, guys, you can use is this. Oh, wow.
Non-verbal verbals.
Just take it down to grunts. Because it works.
You don't have to use your words then, right?
No words. Grunts are not words.
Alice says, the irony being that I'm not always great at listening without reacting. Yeah, me too. I want to be listened to, but yeah. Last week we talked a little bit about this book from John Eldredge, Wild at Heart.
We're almost at an hour right now, so we're gonna speed up a little bit here so we can just get to some questions backstage. But again, what we looked at last week was Men want a battle to fight, adventure to live, beauty to rescue for the most part.
Yeah, and then when we think about where the girls are in that, meanwhile, the women love being rescued. They love being swept up in the great adventure or partnering, going along in the adventure together.
She loves the adventure.
This is true for me. And knowing that she is the beauty. So she is worth going for. I talked about my part of the story where Dan pursued me. That is so powerful for me. Every time I think of it, even today, even sharing the story, that he swept me up in the adventure of relationship with him. And he just really esteems me for that.
So here we get to Proverbs 31.
So Megan brought this up earlier. Here it is. So many times when I first started getting into Proverbs 31, it was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be like as a woman. Okay, great. Now I know. And then it was like, what? All that stuff? Oh, yeah, I got to be hardworking, wise, lovely as an angel,
Suze,
beautiful, resourceful,
buy a field?
Noble, moral. Yeah, did I bake bread this morning? No, I made waffles. But did I bake bread? No. Did I buy a field?
She hasn't bought a field in days.
No,
how dare her?
Am I virtuous, righteous, charitable? Like all those. Wow, that's a lot of pressure for me to have that responsibility to be the Proverbs 31 woman.
Now, I want to challenge you at some point to go look at Proverbs 31 again. This is not a list of womanhood. I just have to tell you that. This is not a list of womanhood. This is King Lemuel. He's not even writing this. He is quoting what his mother has said to him. His mother seems to be bringing in a shopping list of, you know what, King? I have raised you, and I know the things that you're not very good at. And so you need to find a woman who has these characteristics. She is not writing this for every man in the kingdom. She is writing this for her son. And we will do a Duzie Live sometimes on making a list, because I think that's very, very important, that you need to know yourself well enough to know this is the kind of person that you're going to need in your life. And so when I read that, this is not a standard to judge Susie by. Susie, did you fail or did you succeed today because you bought a field? That's not that at all. These are all great qualities, but these are also the qualities of a superhero. And I think what the king's mother was doing is saying, you need to have, in the position you're going to have, and I know your characteristics, you're going to need to have a woman who has these areas, because these are areas that you don't have. My mother could have easily done that for me because she knew me. She could have said, and the more she got to know Susie, she was like, oh yeah, I've tried for years to get him to do that. Yep, you're going to, and I think this is much more what it is, rather than some kind of a mirror that you'll never come up to that standard. So you feel always defeated, or you fake it. There's a lot of
fake it till you
Christian
make it,
fakers. They're like, oh yes, I did buy a field today. No, you didn't. Come on, get over that. There are qualities in every woman that need to be seen, but every woman is not going to have all the qualities.
Yeah,
and so you need to step back and breathe and realize you are living fully alive the way God created you to be. You don't have to put on things that are not you.
Yeah. And Matt says it's really interesting because I feel like a lot of people in our culture would push back against these three things listed for the woman. Like, for example, Disney princesses and how they've changed. That's right. And yeah, some of our Disney princesses, some of our women in movies, they're definitely not in these three categories. They're not that person being rescued, swept up,
tiara, beauty, and a sword.
Yeah. Like they're out there as the warrior woman. So I think our culture is being shaped by that as well.
Yep.
So that's a great point, Matt. But meanwhile, who are we? And it's good to have some standards biblically, and people who know us and love us can help us know those things. For example, when Joshua was starting to date Saskia, we had a talk with him because we know and love Joshua, our firstborn son, who is our favorite. Josiah is also our favorite, by the way. But
when you're parents, you can have as many favorites as you want.
That's right, because they're so different. But we had to talk with Joshua. Joshua, this is who you are. This is what we think you need is she going to be able to do that and be that for you in your life?
Joshua needs lots and lots of positive affirmation, words that are very positive spoken over him. So he will need to have a wife who has words of affirmation. Yeah. And so we just went through a lot of things.
Can she do that for you? Is she that person? And at that point, he said, I don't know. And we said, make sure. And now she is over the top, and she's amazing, and she really fits that bill. And it's important to know who we are.
But that's one of the role, I think, as a parent, is when your kids are dating, you can just make them aware, these are things that I see you need. Is she or is he able to think that or be that into your life?
Now, this She is Amazing is a little workshop
I do backstage here now, right?
Okay, backstage bonus. Yep.
Backstage bonus.
If you need to go, you go backstage.
If you do have to go, if you do have to go, please write in the comment one of your takeaways. We need to have you process. There's a lot going on here. This is like you've walked into confetti of thought, and you need to pick up one. You need to pick up two. So before you leave, if you leave early, please just write in there, what is one thing that you're taking away?
Something you've learned, become aware of. So did you do the backstage with me? Do we need to go together? Okay, so he's really backstage. She is Amazing is a training that I do for girls, and I don't want to do the training, but I thought there was some elements of this that would be helpful for us.
The way the girl thinks.
In understanding the way the girl thinks. So she is an acronym for SHE, and S is safe. And we've talked a little bit about safety. Dan is my safe person. I'm so blessed with him. And women need safe people. And so in the center of each of us, not just women, but guys need it too. Who is in the center? Who are my people? We were talking about people who can speak to us. And the question would be, who are the people who see me and know me and care about me? And we talked about that when we were thinking about women being able to verbalize from those deep places of our heart. So who are our safe people? We need that.
That's one of the words you use a lot is intimacy. Into me see. Yeah. Be safe enough to let people see into you.
Yeah. You can look into me, and I feel safe enough to show you, to express, and to go to those places and talk about those things that are really important. And H, once we're safe, that's kind of a foundation. And then from there, you build up into H, being healthy, holistically healthy in mind, body, and spirit. So very important for guys to understand what's going on inside the mind. God bless you in that space. That's a hard space to try to know what's going on. What is she thinking? What are we as women thinking? And I think that's part of the processing in safe places.
And I don't know if you're always going to understand what she's thinking, but you want to promote healthy mind in her.
Yeah. So what are the healthy ways of thinking? What are the echoing thoughts? How does she feel about her body? So body space, like am I feeling secure, insecure with my body? Also being healthy in our body, exercise and sleep and eating properly. How that makes such a difference for a woman, not just in her cycles, but also just in her life in general, mind, body, and spirit. How is she connected to God?
Hey, can I also make a comment about the woman's body? I find the woman's body to be a beautiful thing. But here's what I find about guys. The greatest problem that a lot of guys that I work with is their focus or over-focus on the woman's body. When we talk to women, one of the greatest problems they have is their focus on the woman's body.
Yep.
And so there is this incredible attraction, and you can tell a person a woman who they're okay with their body, and you can tell those who aren't. And I think a lot of the thought process and the filters that a woman goes through has to do with a filter in how do I look. So that filter, even if they're saying how do I look, and I know, and it really has nothing to do with size. It has to do with acceptance. I know some people that are incredibly thin that cannot see themselves as healthy. I know some people who are fluffy and they love it, and it's okay. And so I think it's much more, it's not the image the world paints of you. It's being all right with who you are,
healthy,
who you see in the mirror.
And the combination of those three for all of us, mind, body, spirit, we talk about that with our rhythms in the Fully Alive Revolution Relaunch Your Life course. And really, we're constantly talking about the balance. And a woman needs that as well.
Enough.
So safe, healthy, and enough. So Brene Brown really paints this picture, and this is guys and girls. But
if you're not listening to Brene Brown, she's got some great things to say.
It's really important. There's the never enough syndrome. So you can just fill that in. Good enough, perfect, thin, strong, tan, talented, smart, creative, spiritual, wise, quiet, loud. It could be anything. Never enough. And so this is really important for us. In order to be enough, the word that's covered right there is shame. So many times women feel shamed. They feel shame for themselves, whether they've been shamed from the outside or not. And then that leads to comparison, and that leads to fear. Where if we are enough and we have that enough space because we're safe and we have a good balanced health, we can feel worth because of who we are in Christ and who we are in our relationships, going to the proper boundaries instead of comparison, and being able to risk showing up and being who God made us to be.
This is where I'd say that I think there is an overemphasis on shame in the church. And we see that a lot with both the men and women we talk to. We use shame as a dagger to stop people from going directions we don't want them to. Where what Jesus will speak to the woman caught in adultery and say, neither do I condemn you. But go and sin no more. He starts with worth. And I think this is where we have to, in this generation, start with worth. Shame doesn't work. Shame never changes anyone.
That's right.
It makes them go hide, or it makes them rebel. It doesn't cause change. And so the woman who lives in shame in her mind is always not going to show up. But a woman living with a mindset of worth, she's there. She shows up.
So we need to help each other have that worth. I think it's for guys as well as girls, but definitely it is a basis. So she needs to be safe, healthy, and that allows her to show up with being enough. We had this verse last week from Philippians chapter 4, and this time we're going to focus for the sisters. Finally, sisters and brothers, whatever is true, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, or praiseworthy, think about such things. So let's talk. What do you guys want to know more about? What do you want to hear more about, guys and girls? Girls meet guys and guys meet girls.
This has been, I think, for me, a bit of a tidal wave. There's a lot of information here with not a lot of answers. And I think that's because there aren't a lot of answers.
Time for having the chats together and the conversation.
I think it's a time for listening. It's a time for asking questions. And I know there's a lot of people that they would rather have the information than the journey. But I believe that the questions are more powerful than the answers. And so sometimes it's best just to ask the questions and then go on an Easter egg hunt for it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That's why Jesus asked so many questions and answered so few, because when you answer a question, it stops the conversation. When you ask a question, you're off to the races.
And I think both last week and this week, just being able to hear from you in the chat and the different ways that we see even these concepts that we're putting out here for discussion, we're seeing them from our own life experience, of course, from our own perspectives, from our own cultures. But as we communicate, and Megan, you said it beautifully, communication is clearly the key. We think we know in our minds, but when we bounce those things off of one another, we see it in a different light. We see it from different perspectives, and we understand. For example, Megan, you just brought up the whole thing about consent in relationships, which I hadn't, I've thought about that before, but I didn't see it as important. Boundaries and communication and different things in our relationships. But what about consent? So important for us to think about. And as we are doing life together in community, like we're doing here on Duzie Live and the follow-up chats that happen, thank you so much for that. We see it from a different perspective. It gives us a more holistic view.
And I also want to speak to some of the women, because you may have grown up in a situation where you were told, well, your beauty comes from the inside, not from the outside, almost as a way of sticking you with a knife and saying, don't buy that beautiful dress, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this.
Yeah.
And I think we always have to take the Bible in its full context. Yes, the beauty comes from the outside, but that does not mean that you have to settle with. I remember this girl one time on the ship. When she first came to the ship, she dressed beautifully. And
she took care of herself,
over again, she was told, don't dress nice. Your beauty's from the inside, and all the rest. And when we came back to visit her, she was basically wearing like sackcloth and ashes. She looked terrible. She says, well, I'm more holy now. And it's like, no, you're not happy. You're none of those things. So I sometimes go back to Ezekiel when they're talking about Israel and how God comes along and finds this baby girl who has been basically thrown out, laying in blood, and he begins to talk about what he does for that. He doesn't come along and say to the girl, just think about your inside. He comes along, and there is this bathing, there's ointments, there's an embroidered dress, there's sandals of fine leather. Okay, for a girl, you should be rejoicing because you can go buy nice shoes, dressed in fine linen, costly garments, adorn you with jewelry, put bracelets on your arm and necklace on your neck, put a ring in your nose and earrings in your ears and a beautiful crown on your head, adorn you with gold and silver. Your clothes are fine linen, costly fabrics. Your food was honey and oil and the finest flour. You became very beautiful. I just want to speak into some of this mental image that sometimes as women, you feel that you want to look beautiful, but because you're a follower of Jesus, you can't. That's from the pit of hell.
Yeah. Because
God has created you, and some of those things, if you love beautiful shoes and they just make you feel like stepping out, dancing a jig, whatever it is, get those shoes, because God has not called us to a scarcity mentality. He's called us to life and to abundance. And I'm not saying he's calling you and all of us to be wealthy. It's not that at all. But I just want to speak truth to you in your mind. There's been a culture of godliness that actually denied the power of God to allow you to be fully you. And you need to embrace that. That's just from a daddy point of view, from a man point of view. Live life fully alive.
Yeah. And I love what Megan puts a bit of humor. It's not all about the shoes. Sometimes it's about travel and brownies.
It is.
1 Peter 3 is a verse that I love and I struggle with all at the same time. It says, don't be concerned about the outward beauty of fancy hairstyle, expensive jewelry, or beautiful clothes. You should clothe yourself instead with the beauty that comes from within, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is so precious to God.
So true.
So long ago, I was like, okay, yeah, the inside is more important than the outside. And I struggled with that last part. That's like a quiet spirit. And I am so rarely quiet, except for when I'm sleeping. I am not quiet.
She's not always quiet when she sleeps either.
So I'm not? Okay. Okay, but quiet, that was a hard concept for me to live by. Okay, so the Proverbs 31 woman, I can't do all that. And then you want me to be quiet from 1 Peter chapter 3. This is tough. But more recently, and lately, I've been just learning how to quiet my spirit, be at peace. And I think that's so important. A woman who is at peace with who she is and how she lives her life and how she works within a relationship, guys, girls, their community, is so powerful. That is unfading beauty. And that is more of what I'm going for at the moment, is that piece of being, the being moment, not necessarily the doing. The Mary, the Martha concept from the Bible, who was with Jesus. One was working all the time, the doing, versus the one who is being with Jesus. And I think that being perspective gives me a lot more comfort and peace to be who I am and not worry about the outside and how I appear, or how I look, or how I present, but more importantly, who I am on the inside. Am I authentically being who God created me to be? And I am trying to relentlessly pursue who God created me to be, and to roll that out to allow others to have that same freedom and equipping as well.
But logic says this: God did not just create you to be an inside. You all would be crazy if you walked around just as an inside. He also gave you an outside.
As an inside.
So both are important. And
Yeah.
when we just focus on the inside, which is absolutely important, you also have to say, but God gave me an outside, which is also important.
Take care of it.
If you only have an outside and no inside, that's crazy. You would implode. It's just, you have to have the balance of both.
Yeah.
And it's a danger sometimes to just focus on one without the other. We need to be people with a balanced life moving forward in our mind, in our body, and in our spirit.
Yeah. So Megan is just giving in. I'm just jumping on the chat now and responding to you. I used to go to the church in London, and there were a lot of single gay men there. Mm-hmm. And one of the musicians was a really cute guy who was also straight. And sometimes he used to get asked out on dates by the guys, and he was really good at saying, "Thank you for asking, but I'm straight." I think we don't know how to say no or yes to people in a way that's polite and respectful. Yeah, it's important with the whole boundaries. And
we'll get into some of that next week.
Yeah. So Rob says you can't really say thanks for asking, but I'm not interested in a way that's not offensive, though, for guys or girls. And the fear stops us. Yeah,
fear is huge.
How can we respond appropriately to people by saying an authentic no or yes in a way that esteems people? That's a great question.
Just a response as well. There are times in my life where I just have to, in those moments, have a conversation with myself. And girls, you probably the same way. What am I afraid of?
Yeah.
I mean, if I say yes or no, are they going to take me out and are they going to burn me? Are they going to bury me alive? I know. What am I afraid of? And I think that is because I think sometimes we live in this fear world without addressing what the fears actually are.
Yeah. So Megan says, I disagree, Rob. And Rob says, well, have you ever been turned down and not upset? If you have, that's awesome. I never managed. That rejection piece for me is devastating. Just if people don't accept who I am or what I'm presenting, not necessarily being asked out or not, but rejection is a really big deal. Somebody else was saying something else about that. Rob says we're allowed to be offended and allowed to cause offense with honesty and gentleness. And I think that's a great challenge, being honest and gentle. And Megan says, I think we haven't learned how to process rejection. Agreed. Thanks, Megan. She says, amen, Susie, you're such an inspiration to me. You are the kind of woman that I strive to be. Fierce and amazing and spiky and communicative.
Totally, you got it.
I love that description. I mean, I like those. I like every single one of those words. Fierce, amazing, spiky, communicative.
It's like marrying a porcupine.
Oh, spiky. I don't think that's what she was trying to say. I took that in a much nicer way. Thank you. I'm feeling the love, Megan. I appreciate that.
Porcupine.
Matt says, I think I understand what Rob's saying, though. Ultimately, the person asking is being vulnerable and asking. And if declined, then they're being rejected. Not necessarily as a person. That rejection is what we fear.
Yeah.
I agree, Matt. I agree. Yeah. Okay, so Matt's taken up. Thanks for being here. Not what I was trying to say at all, Dan Potter. Yeah. I think we've come to a really great space here. I want to once again invite you to jump on the Fully Alive Revolution Facebook group and continue these chats.
Susie will put a place there today that you can actually, what are your questions about boundaries? We're going to start working towards pulling that off.
Yeah.
But we would love to know what are areas that you think boundaries are needed in. Give us your, whatever you want, looking at boundaries, because we're going to go there. I think it's probably going to be more than a week. I don't think you can do boundaries justly in a week. But we're going to start off with these unique relationships when there are boundaries, because we live in a world where it's like there's no boundaries. Well, then you're gonna drive off the cliff. Yeah, there's got to be some.
And I added that whole aspect of rejection, taking care of hearts to that. I think that's really an important space as well. Ellie, welcome in. I didn't know you were here. I think it's important to realize, she says, on the receiving end of rejection, that it won't work unless both people are truly excited about going into a relationship. True. Rejection is hard, but an unbalanced, unequal yoke will also lead to a hard relationship too. Oh, for sure.
And for both for guys and girls, reminder. If someone's asking you for a relationship and you know it's not right, offend them. Yeah. Offend them. It's not right.
Take care of their heart, but be honest and say no. Yeah.
It's just, you have a life too. And I know so many people that are, they're rescuers of people. And so they don't speak what is actually true about themselves. That, no, I just want to be your friend. I don't want to offend them. So I'll say more. No, you have the right to be honest. Please do.
Yeah. Rob says, take home. This is his takeaway. Listening as a safe space is a gift I can give.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
All of us can do that. We were talking about that. A big heart and 2 ears. Listen more with your big heart and caring for the person.
Yeah.
I love that reminder, Rob.
I can see in the chat space or just above it in our little thing, there's a lot of you here that are not chatting. Please, before you leave, I want you to take a moment and think, what is my one takeaway for today? Just like Rob has put, your takeaway is this. What do you want to remember? There's a bunch of stuff from this that you're not going to remember. But if you take a moment and think and then write it down, it's a very good chance that you're not only going to remember it, but you're going to process it.
Megan says hers is being a guy seems to be hard work. What do you think about that one?
I work on it every single day. I have worked on it for 56 years.
Go, Dan.
I've lost hair over
it. That's great. Thank you so much for joining us for this Duzie Live. Girl meets guy. And again, once again, we're going to girl meets boy.
Right.
Once again, we're going to continue this conversation in our Fully Alive Revolution Facebook group. It's a private group. If you're not there already or don't know how to get there, message us. And again, pour your questions in that space or in any way that you connect with us on any of the social medias, on WhatsApp, on email, whatever way you want to connect with us. We want to hear from you.
If you don't have Facebook and you want to have a conversation, we have also, is it Fully Alive on WhatsApp? We have a group.
Yep, we have a
broadcast that some people aren't on Facebook, but they can be in here, and there's a conversation going on there as well.
Yep. Alice says, takeaway. Mine is that men really like to be needed. Would you say that's true of you?
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely he needs to be needed. He likes to produce things. He also has a love language of acts of service. So if Dan can serve in any way, shape, or form,
I cook all the time. I love it because I'm serving people.
Yeah.
That to me, that's a wonderful thing. And I'm needed. Susie would starve to death without me. And so it's like, I showed up today. I love that.
Yeah. Well, you always get hungry before me, so that's why he ends up cooking. That's awesome.
But the other day, I made some soup because I thought Susie's going to love this soup. And it wasn't my favorite soup, but I made it specifically for Susie. And because I made a comment that I didn't like it, she decided not to eat it. So then the next day, I had to remake it, and then we both ate it.
Yeah.
Any more takeaways?
Yeah, there's another one that's here privately that just says, I learned so much today, and so much of how I think and process things makes sense. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing that as well.
You can always do private messages if you don't ever want to know.
Yep.
We won't say who you are.
Yeah, and Roseanne says, guys take their emotions underground. Never really realize that. Doesn't that help you in your relationships as well? So we need to give them safety and space and time. And then I love to pull out because there's so much great stuff inside of not just Dan, but many of the guys that I do life with. And I love what they have to offer, but I do need to take time, not only to be listened to, but also to listen.
Where I grew up, it's very near Canada. And if you're in Detroit and you're going over to Windsor, Canada, there's two ways to go. You can go across the bridge.
That's up and above and over.
You see everything. Or you can go through the tunnel underneath the water. And I think sometimes us guys, we build the tunnel. And you girls, you build the bridge.
You get there.
They both will get you someplace, but they're a totally different way of getting there. And I think that's one of the difference between guys and girls. But there are some girls as well that they're the tunnel, and some guys that are the bridge. Some guys just hang glide. I have no idea.
Or bungee jump.
Or shoot them out of the cannon. They land in Canada.
Oh, that's fun. Megan says, takeaway. Don't shake up guys too much. They may explode. And my parents say you two are a great authority for so many young people over the world. Thank you. We love being in that space. We
had
love
good teachers.
Journeys. We love journeys with the next generation. It's been awesome. Yes, thank you again. Keep putting the takeaways. Keep this chat humming. This has been a really great Duzie Live. Your life is a remarkable story.
True.
An adventure that only you can create.
We exist to motivate and equip you to live fully alive.
Today in this Duzie Live, we're talking about unique relationships. Girl meets boy. And we really want you to live fully alive.
So you can love yourself. You can love your world. And you can love your God. My name's Dan.
And my name is Susie. Together we're a Duzie.
Live fully
and love fully.
Thank you. You can keep putting your comments there. This has been a great time. And when we shut this down, we go over to the kitchen and we process. So we got another hour, but it is so much fun.
We're going to have time to evaluate what's been going on. Thank you so much for showing up. It has been awesome. What you have contributed has shaped this time, and we so love and appreciate that.
And my mother's still here, it looks like. And Mother, I just want to say to you, happy birthday.
She'll be 80 in 2 days.
2 days.
Cheryl
Happy
Potter.
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Mom. You're a song longer.
I knew her longer than you.
Happy birthday to you and many more. Y mucho más. Stolat. Love you. Bye. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us.
If you love this, meet us at 2 o'clock because we're doing it all over again.
And
then.
Invite a handful of friends
And it's
to
totally
join
different.
us. Bless you.
Bye.
Thanks.